It's time for the real Jonathan Smith Show. This is Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? It's the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thanks for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Twitter, the Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download wherever you get your apps. Maybe you're watching, let me think, where else could you listen? Oh, 1430 AM. Duh, the way that most people listen, I would assume. Big show in store today. Coming up at 11 o'clock, TonyREast. He's going to join, and we're going to talk Pacers. They got beat by 30 yesterday when they were playing in Paris. Wemby just went, absolutely nuts. 30 points. Just played out of his mind. He's going to join at 11. We're going to talk about that. Zach Gray at ZGtheGrapevine. He's going to join coming up at 11:40. He's going to give out bets. He is also from Cincinnati. He has thoughts on Lou Anarumo, the Colts' new defensive coordinator. And I have thoughts, so many thoughts, on Lou Anarumo. He had his first press conference yesterday, and he said some interesting things. He was asked some halfway decent questions. And one of the questions that he was asked yesterday was, I don't know if you remember or not, but DeForest Buckner made some interesting comments at the end of the season, talking about how there were issues with complacency and how there were issues about guys' egos getting in the way. And Colts' new defensive coordinator, Lou Anarumo, was asked about those comments and kind of how to fix that mentality in and around the locker room, and more specifically on the defense. And here's what Colts' new defensive coordinator, Lou Anarumo, had to say.
I just think that that can happen in this league, right, wrong, or indifferent. I wasn't here, so I can't speak to it. But I know this. Sometimes a fresh start for a coach or for players is a good thing. I know the standard of how we'll carry ourselves as coaches. We ask these guys to be consistent as players. I'll stand up there in front of them and say the same thing I'm saying to you. I want you guys to be this. I don't want a lot of that. And they got to expect the same thing from us. So my standard is going to be that I'm up there and I'm going to be a truth teller. I'm going to tell them the truth. It's my job to say, yes, you're doing it right, or no, you're doing it wrong. That will happen. And it will happen to all of them. I don't care number of years in the league. I don't care. It's just something that, I've always believed in. And good players, great players want to be coached. They want to know the truth. All right. That's always been the case. And if they don't, then there's probably a little bit of an issue there. But the best ones I've ever been around, coach me hard. Tell me what you want. And I've always found that to be true.
Lou Anarumo, Colts' new defensive coordinator, right there, talking about just some of the issues with complacency that DeForest Buckner had talked about at the end of the season. I got to be honest. This whole I'm going to be a truth teller, it's kind of cliche, which makes me think that that's why Chris Ballard hired him. Chris Ballard loves his cliches. But I have to be honest, I don't mind it here. The Colts have been built off of feelings. This feels like a theme that has just been on this radio station for the past year, ever since we started this thing. They fired Ryan Grigson because he was too mean, which is more ridiculous than Mike Vrabel not being hired in Washington last year because he was too large. Don't know if you heard that story, but the Commanders were like, yeah, he's too big and intimidating, so we're not going to hire him. Ryan Grigson being fired because he was too mean, insane. Now, if Lou Anarumo is going to hold people accountable, and if he's going to tell people the truth, and if, guys are doing things incorrectly, and he's going to step in and say, hey, man, you can't do that, whether that's on the field or off the field, that I am going to like this guy. I'm going to be all in, because the Colts need somebody who can step in and when a player steps out of line and get them back in line, because the Colts have some personalities on this team that are, quite frankly, not very smart. Okay, the Colts need someone to lay into Zaire Franklin when he goes on his podcast and says something imbecilic, because that's what he does. That's just what Zaire Franklin does. He just says absurd things on social media and on his podcast. And Chris Ballard, he's been there 9 years, has not once stepped in and said, hey, Zaire Franklin, you should maybe not say those things online or where anybody can hear you. If you want to lock yourself in a dark closet and do it, then be my guest. Shane Steichen should have stepped in and be like, hey, man, like maybe don't say outlandish things on your podcast, because he did multiple times this year. Just take a listen to this clip from Zaire Franklin's podcast. He said this earlier in the season, and I can't believe that he wasn't ripped off the microphone after he said this.
Team you want to play more
than Pittsburgh, or what you saying?
No, I'm saying you want to play more throughout your career.
Oh, in the you
can't say the Eagles.
I don't really care to play the Eagles. I want to play. I'm gonna play a team I know we gonna spank like the Giants.
We do play them this year.
So I want to play a team that ain't good with a big market. So yeah, so put New York Giants. I'm talking about rank up. You know what I'm saying? Right around November, December. Come on, baby. I need that. Yeah. Daniel Jones. Yeah.
Your boy.
Why with your boy? Yeah, I want to play them. I don't want to play no good team. I don't want to play no team I don't want no battle. I'm tired of battling Houston and all these. Give me the sweet teams. Give me a 4-11 Giants team. No disrespect to Bobby. I love Bobby.
No disrespect to New York Giants, but you guys suck, and I would like to play you over and over and over again. Which is, first and foremost, the softest thing I've ever heard. Real athletes want to compete against good teams, okay? They don't want to wait around and only play against the bad teams. I mean, just such an imbecilic thing to say. I can't, I don't know if you remember. I don't. But Drew Lock hung 45 on Zaire Franklin in this Colts defense after he said that, right? Because Zaire Franklin said this very early on in the season. As soon as he said it, as soon as he opened his big fat mouth and started saying stupid things, Shane Steichen, Chris Ballard, someone should have stepped in and ripped him out of that studio and told him, hey, man, if you do another podcast this year, you're done. That's what should have happened. And if Lou Anarumo is going to be that kind of guy, then I am all in on him. I am going to like him because the Colts need someone in that building that is tough and holds players accountable to what they say and what they do. The other thing from that Lou Anarumo clip that I like that he said has to do with how good players want to get better, which is just the most true thing ever. Like, good players want to be coached. Okay, if you don't want to be coached, that's a major red flag. It means you're complacent. It means that you're just kind of there to grab a paycheck. And DeForest Buckner talked about how they needed more competition, right? Like that was one of the big things. You remember Chris Ballard fawning over that comment. I just love how he was man enough to say that. Oh, man. Here's my thing. Like, you shouldn't need another good player on the roster to push yourself. Okay? Because the goal shouldn't be to be better than whoever the backup is. The goal should be just to be great and to reach your full potential. And if Lou Anarumo is going to come in and be a truth teller, then hopefully we see players get better while he's the defensive coordinator in Indianapolis. Hopefully he holds these players accountable. Hopefully he pushes them. And hopefully they respond well to the coaching. I am in the boat of Lou Anarumo is going to have some success. All right, I'm still a little gun shy on being like he's going to be great because, Chris Ballard hired him, so who knows. Reed Mouse, who was on the show yesterday, came on and talked about how Lou Anarumo has a knack for making good halftime adjustments. Rick Venturi went on the Dan Dockett show earlier in the week and said that he liked him, liked his scheme and all those things. And yesterday, I stumbled across this clip of the Kelsey brothers, Jason and Travis Kelsey, talking about Lou Anarumo right after he got fired by the Bengals.
I don't know what the is going on over there. That was a wild move I did not see coming, because I thought that, from the outside, their defense was playing really good towards the end of the year.
They definitely played better. I just think Lou, I don't think they had the horses on defense that they've had in the past. And Lou got handcuffed. I don't know that it made sense. He's proven how good of a D coordinator he is with good players, but whatever.
I'm with you, dude. I'm with you. I've always respected the hell out of him.
Travis and Jason Kelsey right there talking about Lou Anarumo. Look, those guys know way more, have forgotten more about football than I may ever know. Seriously. And so when they say that they like a guy, it makes it a little bit easier for me to get behind him. The opinion seems to be that Lou Anarumo is a good defensive coordinator. We'll see if the Colts can acquire the players for him to actually, run the style of defense that he wants. That way the Colts can find some success defensively. Switching gears here, the Indiana Pacers went to Paris, and they lost by 30 to the Spurs yesterday. And good news is they get to play them again on Saturday. So Victor Wembanyama was great. Hopefully you watched, because he put on a show. Showed why everybody was, enamored with him when he was, in the draft. 30 points, 11 rebounds, 6 assists, 5 blocks. Just an absolute stud. Dylan Vassell, one of the best unknown players in the NBA. Just a pure bucket getter. Got 25 points on 9 of 13 shooting. Come on now. Meanwhile, the Pacers did not shoot the ball very well. Part of that is the Wembanyama, can I shoot this or not effect? Okay, they only shot 30% from 3. And my biggest issue yesterday with what happened was Pascal Siakam played 28 minutes and only took 10 shots. Tyrese Halliburton played 30 minutes and only took 11 shots. That can't happen. Can't happen. You can't have these long stretches where your two best players don't take shots. Okay, now I'm not as worried about this with Siakam. Okay, he is usually very present during games. He doesn't dematerialize for long stretches like Tyrese Halliburton did in the playoffs last year. Let's just go back through those games. Game 1 against the Bucks last year, Tyrese Halliburton took 7 shots in 38 minutes. In game 2 of that series, he took 10 shots in 37 minutes. Let's advance. Let's move on to the second round. In game 1 against the Knicks, he took 6 shots in 36 minutes. Game 5, he took 9 shots in 35 minutes. And then against Boston in game 2, I know he got hurt, but in 28 minutes, he only took 6 shots. And this has been an issue. Tyrese Halliburton disappearing, just kind of floating along for these long stretches from time to time. And he's done it this year as well. Let's go back 2 weeks. They played the Warriors. He played 35 minutes and only took 10 shots. On New Year's Eve against the Bucks, he played 39 minutes, only took 13 shots. On December 23rd against the Warriors, 11 shots in 38 minutes. On December 1st, they played the Grizzlies. He took 10 shots in 37 minutes, and so on. There have been multiple instances where Tyrese Halliburton has these games where he's just simply not aggressive enough. And that cannot happen. It's to a point where Tyrese Halliburton is starting to look more like a baseball player than an NBA star. When I was living in Arkansas, when I was a child, I got to go see Mike Trout play baseball when he was in AA. One of the most fascinating experiences of my sports viewing life. And it was so cool. Saw him swing a bat 4 times, saw him jog out to center field, catch a couple routine fly balls. I watched him run the bases faster than any player I have ever seen. He hit a ball down the left field line, and it was a stand-up triple. Dude was just insane to watch in person. And there are nights where watching Halliburton is the exact same experience as going to the ballpark and watching your favorite baseball player. Halliburton will have these 1 to 2 minute stretches, where he'll hit 2 threes, and then he'll have an assist, and then he'll get a steal. And then for the next 10 minutes, you just watch him make routine passes, jog up and down the court because he has to. It's not a laziness issue. It's a lack of assertion issue. He has too many of these long stretches where he just doesn't impact the game. And he kind of looks like a role player during those spots. Does LeBron James or Kevin Durant have long stretches where they just don't impact the game? No, they don't. It never happens. And if the Pacers want to make another run to the Eastern Conference Finals, then that has to change. Tyrese Halliburton cannot have these long stretches where he can't be found. Can't happen. It happened too often last year in the playoffs, and we've seen it happen too many times this year during the regular season. Tyrese Halliburton, I get it. He's a pass-first point guard. It's one of the things that I like about him. He makes the Pacers more enjoyable to watch because of that. With that being said, guys like Nikola Jokic, best player in the world, he's a pass-first guy, but when his team needs it, he'll take 25 shots in a night. I don't think Tyrese Halliburton has a game this year where he took more than 20 shots. He might. I was scrolling through it last night, didn't see that. He has to be more aggressive. He is the best offensive option on this Pacers team. A Pacers team with some pretty big aspirations this season, right? With the goal of making it back to the conference finals, and this time hopefully beating the Celtics or Cleveland or Orlando if they end up, making a run, whoever it ends up being. Like, they have big goals this year, and they will not achieve them if Tyrese Halliburton continues to have these stretches where you don't even realize that he's on the court. That is not what stars do. Okay? So he has to take his next step and be a little more assertive offensively before the Pacers are able to become a legitimate contender. Because they aren't that right now. They're just another good up-and-coming team. And for them to take that next step, Tyrese Halliburton himself has to become a little bit more aggressive. Speaking of being aggressive, Indiana basketball. Man, their fans aggressive right now. Fire Mike Woodson. Why are we paying Omar Ballo all this money to be fat and overweight? Why are we paying Trey Galloway? Why did we let him come back? Why did I participate in the Leal deal for him to turn the basketball over 5 times against Northwestern? A lot of issues going on in Bloomington right now, and they could get worse because on Sunday they're playing against Maryland, who's not a bad team by any stretch of the imagination. But what can we expect from Indiana? Are we going to get this Ohio State version where they gotten embarrassed the last 2 times out? Luke Goody comes out and he scores 22 points. Are we going to get that team, or are we going to get the team that we saw play against Northwestern and Illinois? A team that can't defend me. I actually have the answer to that question, and I'll give it to you when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
Unfiltered takes live here. The Real Jonathan Smith Show. This is Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
The Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Big show today. TonyREast coming up at 11 to talk Pacers. Zach Gray giving out some college basketball bets at 11:40. Indiana playing against Maryland on Sunday. Purdue, Michigan tonight. Can't wait for that one. But we're going to start with Indiana and Maryland because, man, Indiana basketball is just, it's up and down. It's all over the place. It's like a toddler coloring a picture. It's just scribbles. Some of it's inside the lines. Some of it isn't. It's all over the place. Because there have been moments this year where I've watched the Hoosiers and I've been like, this is a good team. Talented. Got a couple big guys who can score. Luke Goody, he can spread the floor. Miles Rice has had a couple of games. And I'm like, maybe he's good. I don't think he is. I think, he's inefficient and he tries to do a little bit too much sometimes. But it's not what this is about. Okay, Indiana has had moments this year where they have looked good, but they have been incredibly inconsistent. And we've seen it time and time again, right? Third game of the year, they beat South Carolina 87-71. South Carolina, good basketball team. They're just stuck in the SEC, the best basketball conference in the country this year. And then they go to the Caribbean or wherever they went, and they play Louisville and they lose 89-61. And they have a half where they give up 50 points. And it's like, it happens sometimes. And then the next game, they play Gonzaga, happens again. They have another half where they give up 50 plus points. They lose 89-73, but then they go on a run. They beat Providence by 16. And then they, crush Sam Houston, and they had some easy games. They crushed Sam Houston. They beat Miami, Ohio. They win, their first game in Big Ten play. They beat Minnesota. It's like, okay, here we go, maybe. And then they go on the road to Nebraska, and they get crushed. Another game where they gave up a 50-point half. And then they beat Chattanooga, and then they beat Winthrop. But that win wasn't great because Omar Ballo didn't play because he was out drinking at like 1 a.m. the night before at a bar, and he got caught. And everyone's like, oh, no, Mike Woodson. Does he have control of the locker room? Why aren't these guys focused? And they just kind of kept winning. They beat Rutgers by 10. They go on the road to Penn State, and they win that game. And then they beat USC, and it seemed like things were going to be okay. Then they went to Iowa, and they lost by 25. It's like, oof. But, Iowa, they had a really good shooting game. Shot like 45% from three. Happens sometimes. Sometimes you go on the road and you play a team in conference. That's just feeling it that night. It happens. And then they had to host Illinois, and that is where things turned for the worst. They give up 60 points and a half, which is incredible. They respond well, only give up 34 points in the second half, but they lose by 25 at home, which you can't lose by 25 at Assembly Hall. That is just not allowed. And then they turn it around. They beat Ohio State in overtime. And it's like, all right, here we go. Back on track. Let's just beat Northwestern. And then they play that game against Northwestern. And that game is everything that Indiana has been this year. Inconsistent. That is what the Indiana Hoosiers are. They have some games where they look like, this team looks pretty good. They can probably compete for the Big Ten title. And then you get that second half against Northwestern, or that first half against Illinois, or the game against Louisville earlier in the year, right? It's just inconsistent basketball. And now it's like they're playing Maryland at home on Sunday. What are we going to get? I think Indiana's going to play really well because they're due for it. They just had a really bad half against Northwestern, and this team has been up and down all year long. Indiana has been more up and down this year than Anthony Richardson, which is probably a good thing because Anthony Richardson was more down than up. Okay, like this team just has to find some basis of consistency. Because like I said, there have been moments this year where they look like a good team. This team is talented. Number 1 ranked transfer class in the country. The issue is consistency. And, Mike Woodson was asked after that loss to Northwestern why this team can't be, consistent for 40 minutes. And he gave just the best answer ever. He said, I have no idea. Thanks, Mike. Isn't it your job to have an idea? And so I expect them to play well, at least for some stretches. And then I expect them to be awful for some other stretches. And hopefully there's just a little bit more good than there is bad, because Maryland is a team that Indiana should beat. They've got that Queen kid who was supposed to come here, and then he changed his mind, and now he's at Maryland. And it's just like, I don't know. This team is incredibly inconsistent, and until that is fixed, they're going to continue to kind of meddle around 20-ish wins. Because the best version of Indiana, the team that we saw against Providence and South Carolina, the team that's moving the ball, and Omar Ballo is finishing around the bucket, and Malik Renew is finishing around the bucket, and Luke Goody's hitting threes. Like that version of Indiana that we have seen for like 10-minute stretches this year, that team can win a lot of games. The Indiana team that struggled offensively in the first half against Northwestern, that team, with the way that they defended, they didn't give up a field goal for almost 10 minutes. That team, that version of Indiana, can win a lot of games. The issue is they can't seem to be one of those versions for 40 full minutes. And as long as that continues, we're going to continue to see them lose games that they shouldn't. And that is the sad reality of it. They need to be more like Purdue. Because Purdue is the definition of consistency. Seriously, Dusty May, head coach at Michigan, and who some people are hoping will be the next coach at Indiana. He was on Dan's show yesterday. You can listen to the Nate Dockett show from noon to 3 on that Indy Sports Ticket app, or you can turn your radios to 14:30 a.m. And he was asked, would you rather play Purdue after a win or a loss? And Dusty May was like, it doesn't matter. Matt Painter has that team incredibly even keel. Like they are always riding the same wave. They never get too high. They never get too low. They are the complete and total opposite of the Hoosiers and what they have been so far this season. So I expect for Purdue and Michigan to be a great game tonight. I cannot wait to watch this game because unlike Indiana, Purdue is very well coached. And unlike Indiana, Michigan is very well coached. We got the number 21 ranked team in the country, arguably the best team in the Big Ten going into Mackey tonight. That place is going to be incredible. Purdue's favored by 4.5 points. Don't know if I would touch that one because Michigan is really good. That big golden kid, so tough. Such a good player. The big 7-foot transfer from Yale who plays point guard, Wolf, such a tough player. He's so good. And I expect the game to be great because both of those teams are the total opposite of Indiana. I know exactly what they are. I know that Purdue, when they get in trouble, they're going to do one of two things. They're going to throw the ball down to Trey Kaufman-Wren, and he's going to get to that right-handed hook shot, or they're going to run a screen and roll, screen set by Trey Kaufman-Wren for Braden Smith going right. That way Braden Smith can get to the elbow and hit a pull-up jumper. Okay, like that is what Purdue does when they're in trouble. I know that they're going to compete defensively. I know Caleb First is going to do a good job of protecting the rim. And yeah, I know exactly what they are. And I know Michigan, when they get in trouble, they're going to go to their wolf and golden screen and roll, and good luck guarding that. Okay, it is so incredibly difficult to stop a big-on-big screen and roll with the athletes that Michigan has at that size. Now, let me ask you a question. When Indiana is in trouble, what do they go to? When Indiana really needs a bucket, who is the player that they call on? I have no idea. No idea whatsoever. Is it Trey Galloway? It has been sometimes. They'll set that high ball screen with Omar Ballo, Trey Galloway. He'll come off of it going right, and he'll get downhill. But whenever he does, feels like he doesn't want to shoot it. He just throws a helpless lob up to Omar Ballo, and he's overweight, so he's not going to jump up and grab it. And so Mike Woods is like, I don't know if we always want to go to that. What if we just went to Malik Renew in the post, and then Malik Renew's like, sure, let me throw up this jaggedy left-handed hook shot. It's like, we went out and we got Miles Rice. He was supposed to be the savior of Indiana basketball this year. What if we got him involved? he's a 29% three-point shooter, so I don't think the defense necessarily respects him. Like seriously, like what is Indiana's go-to thing when they need a bucket? They don't have it. And they're going to play against Maryland this weekend. And they have it. They're like, hey, where's Queen? Give him the ball on the block and let him go to work. Because chances are he's probably going to score. And the fact that Indiana doesn't know what to go to when they need a bucket is proof of who they are. They have no idea. And I really don't either. They're a consistent team that sometimes makes threes, sometimes doesn't. More times than not, they miss. And, 31% three-point shooting team. There's a lack of good guard play. Omar Ballo's a good player, not a great one. Malik Renew, tough for him to coexist alongside Ballo. Like I don't know what they are. And they don't know what they are either. And that is a major issue. And that is why they are inconsistent. So how is Indiana going to play against Maryland? Inconsistently. Simple as that. We got NFL football coming up this weekend. The Commanders, they're playing the Eagles. That game's going to be awesome. Can't wait for that one. A division matchup with a spot in the Super Bowl on the line. Doesn't get much better than that. Bills, Chiefs, can't wait for that one. Oh, I can't wait for that one. I'm jazzed up just thinking about Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, playoffs, Super Bowl bid on the line. Can't wait. And I have a confession to make about that game. So when we come back here in about 4 minutes, I will make that confession.
The best takes. The real Jonathan Smith Show. This is Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
The real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Hopefully you're having a nice week. Happy Friday. TonyREast joining here in about 20 minutes to talk Pacers. Zach Gray coming up here in an hour to give out some winning college basketball bets, as he always does. We are going to talk AFC and NFC Championship games, but we got some breaking news. Pete Carroll, as of 5 minutes ago, has been hired as the Las Vegas Raiders' new head football coach, which is, I would argue, a good hire. I like this hire just because he's a proven guy. He is a proven commodity. You know what you're getting with Pete Carroll. You're bringing in a coach that players like. You're bringing in a guy that has put together some pretty good defenses in the past, a guy who's coached in multiple Super Bowls, a guy who's won one, like a good, solid coach. I would argue an upgrade over I'm blanking on their Antonio Pierce, not Alec Pierce. He plays receiver for the Colts. Antonio Pierce. I would argue that he is an upgrade. But my first thought when this happened, when I saw the news, who would have thought that Pete Carroll would get another head coaching job in the NFL, but Bill Belichick wouldn't? That is surprising to me, because when that happened, if you would say, hey, Jonathan, you got to put money down on either Pete Carroll or for Belichick to get another head coaching job in the NFL, I would have put my money on Belichick, because he is, or has the reputation of being, the best coach in the history of the NFL. And, you know, now he's in North Carolina. He officially signed his deal, all that kind of stuff. But it's not surprising that Pete Carroll got hired. It is surprising to me, though, that Bill Belichick did not get hired while Pete Carroll did. With that being said, we got conference championship games coming up this weekend. Eagles and Commanders, Chiefs, Bills. And I have a confession to make. I'm rooting for the Chiefs. I am. Okay? I think dynasties are awesome. I do. Dynasties are great unless they cheat like the Patriots did. Aside from that, I like dynasties. I do not have Chiefs fatigue. I know that a lot of people do. They're sick of the Chiefs beating their favorite team. Look, I'm a Dolphins fan. We're never good enough to worry about, Patrick Mahomes having to beat the Dolphins in the playoffs. It's just not a thing for me. And I'm just like, oh, you mean I get to watch the best quarterback on the planet? Maybe the best quarterback ever again? Yeah, sign me up for that. I like great. I enjoy greatness. Okay, I didn't have Warriors fatigue when Kevin Durant was playing for them. I still don't have LeBron James fatigue, even though he's been great for the last 22 years. Okay, I do not tire of things that are great. I enjoy things that are great, and I always will. Who doesn't love a great steak dinner? I know I do. I'm getting one on Sunday. I can't wait. Aspen Creek Grill. Can't wait. That place is great. That's why I'm excited for it. I also like the idea of getting to see something that's never happened before. Okay, the world is, thousands of years old or whatever. And the idea of getting to see something that's never happened before is pretty cool. Like, the NFL's been around a long time. We've never seen a team three-peat. And I enjoy the idea of witnessing and watching the Chiefs achieve that. And I like even more the idea of, in a decade, when I've got kids running around and this documentary comes out and they watch it and they go, hey, Dad, was this as cool as they said? And I can be like, yes, it was, even though everyone hated the Chiefs. So I got to be honest, I hope that they win. And I do think that they'll win. The Chiefs are 1.5-point favorites, and I'm not picking against them. Okay, the Bills are great this year. This is the best offensive line the Bills have had with Josh Allen as their quarterback. Josh Allen was the third least pressured quarterback in the NFL this year. Okay, the pass protection has been good. James Cook has had an amazing year. He's one of 16 running backs in the NFL that was a 1,000-yard rusher. Okay, Khalil Shakir, Amari Cooper, Keon Coleman. That's a solid three wide receivers to have. It is. It's better than what the Chiefs have. Their defense for the Bills, not as good as the Chiefs. Still in the top half of the league, though, and very opportunistic. Like, they just kind of find a way to force turnovers. They forced 3 against the Ravens. The Mark Andrews fumble, the Lamar Jackson fumble, the Lamar Jackson interception. They just kind of find a way to force turnovers, which is kind of problematic because the Chiefs haven't turned the ball over in 8 straight games. But this year feels like the year that they should beat the Chiefs. I think that's what a lot of people would tell you because the offensive line's good. The run game's good. The receivers are good. Matt Milano's back playing defense for the Bills. He's their best defender. When he's present, he makes everyone better. This feels like the year that Josh Allen does what Mike Woodson can't do, and he gets over the hump, and he beats the Chiefs. But we said the same thing last year. We did. Last year was the year for the Bills to beat the Chiefs, right? James Cook had a good year. Offensive line was solid. Stephon Diggs was still there. The defense was having a good year. Josh Allen was playing amazing at the time. You looked up and down the roster, and then you looked at Kansas City, and you're like, yeah, this roster's better. The game's in Buffalo. Yeah, last year was also supposed to be the year that the Bills were supposed to beat the Chiefs. And this year, it feels like people are saying the same thing. Good offensive line, good running back. Josh Allen playing the best football of his life. But they have to go to Kansas City this year, unlike last year, which I think is a big deal in this game. Home field advantage cannot be understated when it's in a place like Kansas City or Buffalo. And if you want to look at me and say that the Bills have a better roster than the Chiefs, I would agree with you. Like, the fact that the Chiefs are only 1.5-point favorites tells me that Las Vegas thinks that the Bills have a better roster. Home field advantage, Arrowhead, it's worth at least 3 points. That's probably what they're weighing it in at. So the Bills have a better roster, but I am taking the Chiefs because they just consistently find a way. They've done it all year. Okay, I went back last night, went through some box scores, rewatched a few games, and I've come to the conclusion that the Chiefs have played one good game all year. That was in Pittsburgh on Christmas Day. Aside from that, they just found a way to grind out wins. Okay, and I expect them to do it again. I know that the Bills beat the Chiefs earlier in the year, 30-21. 2 possessions. I don't care, though. Chiefs are healthier. Both starting corners are playing in that game. Hollywood Brown is back playing for the Chiefs, and they're going to win this game. And it'll probably be because something broke their way. Some receiver for the Bills fumbled the football. A referee made a call that people complain about for the next decade. Something like that is going to happen because it just kind of seems to happen to the Chiefs over and over and over again. This defense is elite. That is the one thing about the Chiefs that, look, when you have Mahomes and Kelsey, like, that's obviously what people are going to discuss. But this Chiefs defense is the second best defense left. It is the second best defense of the 4 left behind the Eagles. Okay, so give me the Chiefs to win and cover that 1.5-point spread. They will, they're going to be playing for the Super Bowl again. Conference championship weekend. Oh, geez. And then, of course, we have another great game that feels very different than Bills and Chiefs. We have the Commanders and Eagles. The Eagles are 6.5-point favorites. Everyone loves the Commanders right now. Okay. Jane Daniels. Did you know that Jane Daniels is the best thing ever? Did you know that there's never been a human as great as Jane Daniels to walk the earth? Seriously, people are fawning over him. The Cowboys fans are they're mad at Jerry Jones for not promoting Dan Quinn to be their head coach instead of doing this comical head coaching search. All of the football world has forgotten about how Dan Quinn helped blow a 28-3 lead in the Super Bowl as a head coach. Everyone loves the Commanders. Everyone. But the Eagles are on a different level. They are not the Lions. They are better than the Lions. And I say that with extreme competence because the Lions had 16 players out because of injury in that game against the Commanders. Okay, there's a saying in the NFL that the best team doesn't win. The healthiest team wins, and the Commanders were healthier than the Lions on Sunday. Okay, the Eagles do not have 16 guys out because of injury. They are the healthiest team left. And as great as this Commanders offense is, and as you know, they've scored a ton of points, and it seems like they just never punt. I'm not convinced that they're going to hang 45 points on this Eagles team like they did to the Lions, who once again were extremely banged up, while the Eagles are not. I also don't expect for the Eagles to turn the ball over 5 times like the Lions did. I don't think the Eagles will abandon the run the same way that the Lions did. The Lions were averaging over 5 yards a carry. Jahmyr Gibbs was averaging 7.5 yards a carry. And they're just like, no, let's throw it with Jared Goff 40 times. That is not what the Eagles are going to do. The Eagles want to run the football behind this dominant offensive line. They are the better team. The Eagles are, plain and simple. And I'm taking them because of that. Their defense is better. They're more experienced. They can run the football consistently. Okay, and when you look at this Commanders team, this defense is not very good. All right, Jayden Daniels, great young quarterback. People, like I said, love him. He's great. He's the best. You know, he's the best rookie quarterback ever. Is he? I don't know. I'd have to really sit down and dive through it. And next year, you know, we're going to get all this overhype for Jayden Daniels, very similar to what we got for CJ Stroud this year. You know, I don't know if you remember all the talking heads, the preseason predictions of, the Texans, they're going to play in the Super Bowl and, you know, they're going to be great. And then they went 10-7, barely won the worst division in all of football. Yeah, like that. I think we're going to get something pretty similar with Jayden Daniels and the Commanders next year, because we're going to look back and be like, oh, hey, made the conference championship as a rookie. They've got $80 million in cap space. They're better. But that's just, you know, progress isn't always linear. You know, sometimes you dip and you go back up. But that's beside the point. I'm taking the Eagles. They're better. They are more experienced, and they're healthier. Give me Philly. We're getting Chiefs and Eagles in the Super Bowl, which I can't wait for. I think that is a fantastic matchup, and it's going to be awesome. Something that's not awesome, though, is searching for a new head coach, right? We've got all these teams, you know, looking at, you know, new head coaches, and, you know, the Raiders just hired Pete Carroll, good, solid hire, you know, a guy who has won games in the past. And look, I am always in favor of hiring someone that has a proven track record. It's part of why I like the idea of the Colts hiring Lou Anarumo, a guy who's put together a top 10 defense before when he was with the Bengals. Just give him a few good players, and that defense will be good. Okay, you know, we can talk about coaching all day long, but if you don't have good players, your defense probably isn't going to be very good. Okay, and here's, you know, we had 7 guys get fired, you know, heading into the offseason, and it's fascinating. So the Patriots hire Mike Vrabel, best hire. Okay, Mike Vrabel's a guy who understands the culture, proven winner. Look, he got Ryan Tannehill to the AFC Championship game. That's incredible. Okay, the Bears, they win the offseason again. Congratulations, Bears. You know, they hire Ben Johnson, a guy who could potentially be great. Great coordinators aren't always great head coaches. Some guys are just destined to be a coordinator, and that's okay. Coordinators make a lot of money too. The Jets hired Aaron Glenn, a guy who played for the Jets. It's potentially a great hire. Once again, great coordinators aren't always great coaches. Okay, the Jags, they're going to hire Steve Cohen, the former, or I guess, I don't know, there's conflicting reports. Someone's reported that he's already been hired. Other people are reporting that he's going to be. You know, he's the former offensive coordinator of the Buccaneers. I feel bad for Baker Mayfield, because if the report's true and he is leaving for the Jags, then that would mean that Baker Mayfield is going to have his 8th different offensive coordinator heading into his 8th year in the NFL. That's absolutely brutal. But, you know, the Jags fired their general manager yesterday too. It's an absolute mess. The Cowboys, Seems like they're going to hire Brian Schottenheimer. It's a circus down there in Dallas. Like if you want to like entertain your kids this weekend, just put on some sort of video of the Cowboys trying to find a new head coach because it's comedy. I think it's hilarious. Everything that's going on down there. You got senile Jerry Jones trying to make decisions, and he's probably not in any condition to make any sort of decision. But hey, good for the Cowboys. The Raiders, they hired Pete Carroll, and I think it's a great job. I wouldn't be surprised if they traded up to draft a quarterback. Okay, before today, I would have argued that they were the best position available. They've got some pieces. Brock Bowers, great tight end. I think Tom Brady being involved is a good thing because he understands winning and he's competitive, and you need people at the top of the organization that are competitive if you really want to move the needle. And look, if you don't draft a quarterback this year, then you have a free year to kind of do whatever you want. And you can look back and be like, oh, yeah, we sucked because we didn't have a quarterback. And everyone's going to be like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. That's what Chris Ballard did for, ever since Andrew Luck left. That was a 3-year stretch. So Raiders was the best job available. The Saints are still looking, which is not surprising. Why would anyone want that job? They're in cap hell. Their quarterback's Derek Carr. Why would anyone want that job other than the fact that it's one of 32 in the world? Okay, when I talk about them being in cap hell, they lead the NFL in dead money, which is money being paid to players that aren't on the roster. It's over $80 million. Over $80 million of their cap space is being paid out to players that aren't even on their roster. That is the worst job by far. Derek Carr, and not much money to really work with until all that dead cap money gets resolved. Speaking of things being resolved, the Pacers could not resolve how to deal with, Victor Wembanyama, 30 points, 11 rebounds, 6 assists, and 5 blocks. Dude was dominant yesterday. The Pacers are playing the Spurs again on Saturday in Paris at noon. That game is going to be on ESPN. And TonyREast of Locked On Pacers, he's going to join me here in 5 minutes to talk about the Pacers in general and what went wrong yesterday.
It's time for the real Jonathan Smith Show. This is Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
The real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Hopefully you're having a nice week. It is Friday. Hallelujah. Not a great day, though, for the Pacers. I can't imagine waking up the next day after you got beat by 30 is exactly enjoyable. TonyREast of Locked On Pacers joins the show to talk about that loss and just about the Pacers in general, because before that game, they had been rolling a little bit. Tony, what's going on, man?
Oh, not much. It's really throwing me off that they play games at 2 p.m. right now.
Noon on Saturday, though, is kind of nice.
That is nice. That would be cool, except, like, what do I do the rest? Like, I'm used to, like, cover the game, work, and then, chill out for a tiny bit and go to bed. Like, what am I going to do when I chill out for a tiny bit and I look up and I'm like, wait, it's 4 p.m., 5 p.m.? Like, what is this?
Go out with your fiance. That's what I'm doing. I'm going out with my wife.
I think her family's coming into town, actually. So.
Oh, nice.
We could bring them out to dinner or something. It would be great.
All right. That works for me. Do you know when Aaron Nesmith's minutes restriction is going to be lifted?
That is a good question. I mean, I think this is like the 10th most important thing that happened yesterday, but a big part of their game yesterday was that he played all 4 quarters, right?
Yeah.
Like, that was the most he's played into a game since returning, and it helped that he had a big gap of time between the games. I'm not sure if he would have played very much of the fourth quarter, if at all, if they were in competitive mode. They were down 30 or 20 or whatever it was already in that period, but he did play all of them and got closer to 20 minutes. So I'd imagine that when they get back from Paris, he'll have one more game tomorrow, and then they'll have another 4 days off, that his body should be good to handle 25 minutes if they're already thinking he can handle, almost 20 right now. So that's when I would imagine, but I'll be curious to see what that number actually is and what his role is, because we have no idea.
Like you said, we have no idea. Even though, I don't know, Jarris Walker not playing until the third quarter yesterday makes it seem like his minutes are going to get cut. But before we talk about him, I want to talk about Halliburton here for a second.
Yeah.
But before yesterday, because he wasn't great yesterday, but before that, his net rating was 16.9, which is insanely good. That was for the month of January. Why has he been so good just kind of in this month?
Yeah, both hit like I haven't really been comparing him to last year as much, because that's such a lofty bar for him to hit. But the guy he was 2 seasons ago, that was like a back-end all-star, he's played like that guy this month, right? Where he's running the show, he's hitting his threes, his assist numbers are good, and he's not turning it over like at all, right? That's what's made him look so potent, is with how much he has the ball and how much he's asked to, even when he finishes a game with, like, I'll just make this up. It sounds pedestrian for him, but it's very good for any other player. Like, if he has 17 and 9, right, that's a good game. And if he does that with no turnovers, just given how much he has the ball, the Pacers typically have a pretty dang good offensive night, right? And so that's when he has looked his best. And he had that crazy stretch in late December, early January, where he was just never turning it over game after game, and he would hit lofty assist totals in just about all of them. And that really changed things for him. I think he's defended better, still not good, like still below average, but better this year than he ever has before. So the games where he looks flimsy, like when they just played Philly and he had 5 turnovers, he was a -3 in that game. Like, that wasn't particularly good. When they just played the Spurs and, like, all of his flurry came in one quarter, but his defense was bad. Like, if he connects the defense with a low turnover game, usually things go really well for him. And that's happened way more often recently than it was early in the season, I think.
Joined by TonyREast of Locked On Pacers. You can follow him on Twitter at TonyREast. So the one thing about the Pacers that still drives me crazy is Siakam and Halliburton will both have these long stretches where they don't shoot the ball. Why does that happen?
I don't know. That's about it. I mean, who did they just play that they lost to? It was their last loss before going to Paris. I just noticed. Oh, Cleveland. They played Cleveland at home, and Halliburton didn't play in that game, but Siakam had that monster first half and then, like, had 2 points in the second half. And I even tweeted, is this going to be, his first 30-point game of the season? Are we finally going to see it? Like, is this going to be a big moment that I keep referencing this crazy stat about how he keeps getting 29 in that 30. Then he had 23. He had 2 points in the second half, and he wasn't even close, right? And, like, Halliburton has not had any of those, like, crazy nights like last season where he's getting 40-plus and 10 assists and all these. Now, I don't know some of the answer is that, Haliburton hasn't had a crazy night since they traded for Siakam, period. Like, he hasn't needed to be the scorer role type that he could be or can be. But with Siakam, I just don't get it. Like, they just turn away from him sometimes. Like, that Cavs game in particular, Kenny Atkinson talked about it after the game. Like, they went zone on purpose in particular to slow down Siakam and limit the good touches he was getting. And I get how that adjustment happens. But on the season, his touches go way down in the second half. Like, you can just read the stats and see it. This isn't just some one-game sample thing. So I truly don't know. My half-baked theory that I haven't really dove into anything specific of is just that they have so much depth that when a game changes in any way, they really just can rely on anybody at any time. So even a small halftime tweak could make someone else more effective or more useful than Siakam in some cases. But Haliburton has the ball all the time, right? Like, the way that his scoring dips is just very perplexing to me every time it happens. And I get that he considers himself pass first and tries to get others involved, but it really hurts them when he isn't, at his absolute apex scoring. Like, they're at their best when he's creating for himself and others, and they just go through stretches where they're floating with both stars, and it doesn't really work out. It's just goofy, I don't really get it, even though it doesn't always hurt their offense. It does enough that they need to be better.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right with Haliburton. But my thing has always been, or I wouldn't say always, here as of late, it's been like when the Nuggets need Jokic to take 20 shots, he usually does.
He's doing it. Yep.
And I don't know if you saw him last night, by the way, like 37, 22, and 17. Sheesh.
Comically easy. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's insane. Anyway. And I just do you think that that's the next step for Haliburton? Like, having the feel of, we haven't scored in like 2 minutes. Let me go score.
Yeah, I do, sort of. Like last season, he talked about how sometimes when they were playing really well, too, like when he was playing off some of their offense was great, he would talk about how sometimes he felt like he was selfish when he was passing too much, right? Because he was actually hurting their offense by overpassing. Like, he wants to get everybody involved. He wants the game to feel natural to everybody, but if that is taking away from the team's true effectiveness, like, that's not something that he should do, right? He should try to create for himself. And I get that he's fighting natural tendencies to do that, but he's just got to find a way to get out of that. And so now this season, it's been different because they have Siakam.
One thing I can promise you.
Oh,
sorry, wrong button.
But anyway, for lots of stretches this year, like with Siakam, I get how it's a little different, but he does have to get over a mental hurdle to make that happen. And I get that that's like a weak excuse. When you're truly a star, as you're referencing with Jokic, you can just do it, right? Like, there'll be times where you have no problem ball in basket whenever I want. I'm good. I can create my own shots. And we've seen Haliburton at his absolute best do that, but it's not like enough, right? Like, they clearly need him to have that level all the time. And the season's been certainly unique and different for him than he expected and maybe the team expected. And I think it's up to them to figure out how they can kind of not make that the case. And maybe that just will never be the type of player he is, but they're at their best when that's who he is. So it's got to be a goal for him and the team to figure that out.
Where are you at with Jarris Walker?
Yeah, it's goofy because he's playing better of late. I think everybody who's watched him thinks that, certainly. But like, every bad lineup combo they have, has him in it this season. Like, he is the guy to me that of every player on the roster, I don't know if you agree with this or not, but like, he requires the most specific kind of stuff around him for the lineups to work, just because, not that he isn't a good player, like he has made threes, he can shoot some. His defense is way better this year than it was last year. He's less gambly, but he still isn't like respected as a shooter, certainly. Like, he's left open quite a bit, and because the defense comes and goes, like, there are some nights where he's not that effective on the defensive end, and they need a second wing stopper, a second strong defensive player in lineups with him. And his shot creation, he can handle it, and it's fine, but it's not awesome. Like, it's not really for others yet. It's mostly for himself. I say all this to say, that kind of player, you kind of are required to put a shooter in around them, or put another shot creator on the floor, or put a certain wing defender on the floor. So all of a sudden, like, if you're just playing the Pacers' default bench group of, McConnell's in there, Shepard's in there, Thomas Bryant's in there, like, you don't have enough of something. You don't have enough defense, or you don't have enough shooting, or you don't have enough shot creation, which can be fine. Like, they've gotten by with that group, but they kind of have to mix and match, and it kind of breaks up their rotation at times. This is a very niche problem, right? This isn't like an every night Jarris Walker issue. And I only say that to say, I think he's playing well, but that is the kind of stuff that might prevent him from getting more minutes as Neesmith returns, is that most of their other players have a skill or multiple skills that make them more malleable in terms of the players that can fit around them in a lineup, right? I think the only other player that has some fit stuff just because he's a really solid self-creator but not a great creator for others and is an okay shooter, but no one really fears him because he doesn't get a shot up quickly, is Ben Mathurin, but he's obviously much more talented as a scorer and has grown as a defender. So I think Jarris is playing way better. Like, this has been the best month of his career since whatever a month ago from today. It's Christmas, right? Like,
yep.
This has been the best month of his career, no doubt. But he does like have some, get his shot up quicker or be more consistent with it or be more solid on defense every single game kind of stuff that he's got to get down to really be able to fit in any lineup, because right now it's not the case. And I think that's why he's the most susceptible to losing minutes when Aaron Nesmith is playing full minutes again.
Joined by TonyREast of Locked On Pacers. Follow him on Twitter at TonyREast. Yeah, I'm with you. They went to one lineup yesterday, and it was during Dan's show.
Third quarter?
Yes. It was like him, Nesmith, McConnell, and I think Nembhard. I think. I had it written down, and I don't have my notepad because I left it at home. Anyway, but like, it was five guys on the floor, and I think Thomas Bryant was at the 5, and I was like, this should be an awesome defensive lineup. And I'm very curious if, just because kind of like you said, like if he's out there, you kind of need another wing defender, and so I feel like they will use him when they need a little extra defense, pair him with like McConnell, Nembhard, and Nesmith. I think that's going to kind of be where they use him the most.
Yeah, I think that makes some sense, and he's good enough at a lot of stuff, right? He's not like terrible or detrimental in all these ways. Like I do feel like when I say all this stuff, sometimes I'm like overly crapping on him because he can play. Like he's a good, he's way better this year than he was last year. Like it actually is not problematic, but just like it merits a long discussion that he's probably going to lose minutes, right? Like he's played that good that at least you have to go, oh man, is this good? Like that their 8th pick from last year who can kind of defend and kind of shoot now and still hasn't even played 80 games in his career is going to lose minutes already. Like it's tough, right? But it's kind of the only answer they have. Everybody else does something so obvious, or the other guy people bring up is Ben Shepherd, but Shepherd, like every lineup he's in, has done well. Like he just had that awesome game they played against Philly where the whole Pacers team for some reason was just out of rhythm. Every time Ben Shepherd was on the floor, they just crushed the Sixers. Like he just defends hard. He defended Maxey well. He runs the corners. He makes threes. Like that's a really valuable player given the way the Pacers play. It's like I get that Jarris Walker has more air quote skill than him. It's a tough rotation choice to make, and Ben Shepherd fits in more lineups. It's the reason he plays more. And I get that that's hard to say. He's older and he's picked later in the same draft, but it's just the hard decisions they have to make, having a team with 11 guys. But this is why that everybody's going to talk consolidation when it comes to trades with them whenever they do decide to make a move, because they have too many guys, and that's fine. They have too many guys because they've drafted decently and have signed good contracts the last couple of years. But at some point, too many guys is still too many guys. You got to figure out what to do about it.
That's exactly right. So before yesterday, I feel like I'm having to preface that with every question that I'm asking. Before yesterday, in the Pacers' previous 15 games, they ranked 5th in the NBA in defensive rating. They're at like 103. Why have they been so much better defensively over the last month?
Andrew Nembhard.
Yeah.
Can I make that the whole answer? I mean, he has been ridiculously good on that end. Like their defense without him has still been better than it was early in the season. Not like just a point or two, which is still a big deal for them because they were and decidedly not a good defensive team for a long time. But I mean, they're like elite level. Just having him on the floor is like all it takes for them to hit that level of like, oh, this is really effective for them. And I don't think it can be super sustainable at the levels they've hit. Like they've had some opponent shooting luck where, I think their opponent 3-point percentage that month like 33%, which isn't crazy low, but it is certainly lucky. But he just takes on the best matchup and does a dang good job of it. You can go through countless guys last month who have faced him and either had a worse night than their averages suggest they should, or that they, you typically do during the season, like Tyrese Maxey just did, or like Cade Cunningham just did, or he like completely shuts them down and takes them into the game altogether. Like some of the Cavs guards had rough nights against him, right? He just has been better. I think Miles Turner has returned to form somewhat on the defensive end as well. Like his drop coverage and they're mixing in drop with him sometimes and being up higher at the nail sometimes on the defensive end. I feel like, he's always been much better in drop, and he's done really well in that way recently too. So that's two of their better defenders. They got Shepard back from injury within the last month, I guess barely still, but they did. And he's a good defender who can defend on and off the ball pretty well. They just had a lot of their best defenders really flexing their skills. They slightly tweaked how they do coverages with big mans, but so much of it is possible because Andrew Nembhard actually deters anyone. And, since he returned, they've been a top, I think, 10 defense, which I don't think that will sustain. I bet, when a opponent's shooting luck kind of settles in, they grade out as more like I'll make this up, but like 13th to 15th best defense, but that's still a huge deal for them given how awful they've been on that end of the floor. So yeah, it's been crazy to see them be that good on defense, and it's really saved their season because their offense was amazing last year and it's just been like pretty good this year. They needed a different way to win, and they found it by guarding. Believe that or not, the Pacers are guarding. So and that's what's so weird about last night. Like I know you said, besides last night, because both of their worst defensive games actually came in the last month, right? That Boston game where they gave up 142, and now last night have both been since Nembhard came back. So I'm inclined to just point to the fluke button, but they were awful. I mean, they looked dreadful on defense last night. So it's hard to truly just do that. But when they bounced back from awful nights before, they're going to have to do it again.
They have. And, you mentioned the offense there. I mean, the offense over the last month has been better too. I think I know that they were top 10 in offensive rating over the last 15 games. I can't remember if they were top 5 or not, but they've just been playing their best basketball of the year here as of late. But as you mentioned, yesterday was not their best basketball. I mean, they got beat by 30, joined by TonyREast of Locked On Pacers. And I watch the Spurs all the time just because Wembanyama is fascinating to me. What is your opinion of him?
Yeah, I set alarms to watch him last year because there's just like nothing like him in the league, right? And last year he wasn't as good as this. This year he can do everything, right? And even people don't believe me because it didn't look like he was like doing anything crazy. But even Spurs people who were like watching last night's for the Pacers, yesterday's game during the day for us, were like, oh, this is the best he's ever played. Like he did so much of just everything yesterday, right? The blocks were insane. The running threes, he was crazy post plays off the backboard, alley-oops to himself. Like he was in entertainer mode, and sometimes that can be bad. Like you get in that mode and you just try to do too much and you're turning it over a lot. And he did have a lot of turnovers, but he can do everything, right? Now that he can shoot, and people always say, oh, big men need to be around the basket. Okay, great. He can finish there too. Like he can do everything. And you can't do anything about it. Like the Pacers put Miles Turner on him, and the first three I think Wembanyama made in the first half was a contested three from the left wing, and Turner was right on him and jumped, and he still was like Miles Turner is 7 feet tall. It was like he wasn't even there, right? He just turned and shot over him. It was crazy. Like he's gonna be. I almost guarantee sans injuries because he's just tall and huge. Like that he'll win an MVP, at least one at some point, just because he's so unique and talented. Like there's nothing you can do about him. Height is like, I know everybody says height's unteachable, but when you have that combination of height and skill, there's just absolutely no way to guard you. And I think everybody's figuring that out the hard way right now.
Yeah, he's incredible. But as I've watched the Spurs, I have also come to the opinion that Devin Vassell is the best player in the NBA that no one has ever heard of. He's incredible, and he was great yesterday. I think Pacers fans that watch that game are now very familiar with Vassell. Those two guys paired going forward is just going to be just a ton of fun to watch. I am curious your thoughts. When and how does this Jimmy Butler Miami Heat saga end?
Hopefully soon, because I am over it. Totally over it. Yeah, just like, can we just do a trade? Like, do I need a constant Jimmy Butler update? Like, oh, he missed a flight today. Oh, he stays somewhere else. Okay, great. Like, either do it or don't. Like, a lot of the NBA teams deal with stuff like this and are much better about it. Anyway, yeah, I feel like it's got to be coming soon-ish. The only reason I think that is because of that goofy trade the Suns made with the Jazz. That, like, I get why the Suns did it. It helps them a lot with trade flexibility, but on value, that it's a bad trade for them. Like, it just is. They traded one amazing asset for like 3 very okay ones, and you only do that if you kind of know that something's coming, right? Or like you're about to wiggle something free, and I guess that thing would be Jimmy Butler, but I don't like. How is Bradley Beal? Like, how is this going to work out? Who would want Bradley Beal right now? Right? He's not even that good, and he has a no trade clause, so it's hard to trade him again. Like, his value stinks. So I don't know how this is going to possibly work out where the Suns can find a home for him that makes any sense. And so I always thought the Grizzlies made the most sense, and there's been like some rising buzz that I guess they could get back into this, even if Jimmy doesn't want to play there. Like they just need him to be a good Samaritan for the rest of like this one season, I guess. But it just can this get over with? Like it's super annoying, but it does kind of just. I always say this, and it's come true a lot with just kind of random trades. But you know, sometimes when the smoke gets so cloudy with trades like this, where it's such a connected like player team combo. Just like inertia makes it happen, even though it feels like it can't. Like last year with James Harden and the Clippers, right? Everybody knew in July that that's where he wanted to be and where this felt like it was headed. And then it came into the season, and everybody was like, "Well, the Clippers don't have the stuff for trade for him. Guess it's not happening." And then the owners were like, "No, we're doing this," and it happened, right? Like so it just somehow, some way, this stuff just works out when there's this much. And I keep saying inertia, but like. This much smoke and fire and flame and demand for it from everybody involved. And I just kind of feel like in some way that's what's going to happen with the Butler thing is like, that's not really analysis. That's just how stuff has gone before and kind of the sense I get from covering a lot of these big star trade things. So my sense and Spidey sense is that he'll be with the Suns at some point somewhat soon, but I don't know how it's going to happen because it doesn't feel like the Suns have enough stuff to actually do this.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned, the Grizzlies making more sense, which I would agree. I think basketball-wise that does make way more sense. But we have to remember Jimmy Butler wore shoes with the Suns' colors on them. So
okay, that
means
is funny though. That is actually pretty funny.
So that means he has to go to Phoenix. It's written in stone. It's done. I'm with you though. I'm kind of ready for it to end. What'd you make of the All-Star starters?
I mean, I think that they did a pretty good. Yeah,
I scoff because I guess that was a scoff.
I scoff because I think the fourth best Cavs player this year is a starter. I mean, that is don't. And I don't even mean that to be like, oh, this is like Donovan Mitchell stinks. Like Donovan Mitchell's really good, really, really good. I am not trying to crap on Donovan Mitchell, but Garland has been better for sure, and so has Mobley. And I guess I would say he's been better than Jared Allen, but it's not that far off. Regardless, that part kind of made me go, because I like all the rest, right? Cat was obvious, Giannis was obvious, Brunson was obvious. The West, I guess you could quibble about Ant versus Steph, maybe, but I mean, Steph's been really good without the Warriors stink, but it's not Steph's fault. He's been, despite having some crack games this year where he actually is bad, which never happened before in his career, he's been good. On balance, I think that it's pretty good. I just the Mitchell one was the only one where I was like, dang, like that's not how I thought this would land. Tatum, I forgot about Tatum. Obviously, should be one. The West was super obvious, so I guess you could say Wemby and KD was a toss-up. I don't think so. I think they mostly got it right outside of Mitchell. I would have had Garland over Mitchell myself, and Garland finished way down there. He was behind Cade and Dame and Trae Young and LaMelo Ball, and I get that the fan vote got LaMelo that high, but like Garland's been better than Dame for sure this year, and definitely Cade as well. Even though both those players have been good, to be clear. Trae Young has been awesome too, but I just that one made me go what? And then I see Mitchell finished first in player and media rank. I'm like, is anyone watching the Cavs? Like, are we watching the Sam Cavs team? I don't know whatever. It's not an unjust thing. Like he should be an all-star anyway, but that's the only one that I was like head tilting about when it came out.
Yeah, I'm with you, joined by TonyREast of Locked On Pacers. The Steph thing, he had to be a starter. It's in San Francisco. Like, come on now. Like that had to happen. I'm with you on the Mitchell thing. I probably would have gone Garland or Mobley. I guess you can't do Mobley, but in terms of the best Cav this year, I've come around to your take on that. And I started watching more. I was like, you know what? Yeah, Tony's right. And so, LaMelo. I'm just glad that LaMelo Ball is not a starter. I'd have gone crazy.
He might not make the game now, right? Like that was probably his best chance.
He shouldn't.
And he was close. Like I think if he was one spot higher in media rank, him and Brunson would have tied. I don't know what the tiebreaker is in terms of how they do the weighted score, but yeah, he's good. Like LaMelo Ball's a good player. He's been an all-star before. I'm with you. It's like
he's good stats, really bad team guy. That's what he is.
Yeah. And eventually those players always become all-stars, right? Like Devin Booker and Jalen Green's trending that way. But you are a good stats, bad team guy until you're not, and he still is.
That's Exactly right. And he's shooting 42% from the floor, and they let him take 30 shots a game. I'm sorry. I don't like LaMelo. The fact that all these 12-year-olds voted for him and even had a chance to get in was so frustrating. My wife, she was laughing at me last night. They were announcing the All-Star starters, and I had the computer in my lap, and I had like all these LaMelo Ball tweets fired up and ready to go. Because I just was like, they're gonna make him a starter, and I'm gonna go crazy. And she doesn't get it, but that's fine.
It was close. It was very close.
It was. Tony, thanks for your time, man. As always.
You got it, man. Thank you.
See ya. That is TonyREast of Locked On Pacers. I'm gonna see him tomorrow. I'm gonna give him buckets. Playing pickup tomorrow morning, as I always do, and it's gonna be great when we come back here in about 3 minutes. Indiana playing Maryland on Sunday. Purdue playing host to Michigan tonight. That game's going to be awesome. My thoughts on those games and what we're going to get from Indiana when we come back here in about 3 minutes.
The best takes, stories, and entertainment. It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
The Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Hopefully you're having a nice week. Happy Friday. The week is over. Hallelujah. Well, almost over. We're almost there. Just know, like, we're all ready for the weekend. We're ready to race into Indiana, taking on Maryland at Assembly Hall. Very intrigued to see how empty it's going to be because, Indiana's struggling. People are not happy about it. And I expect for Indiana, I expect them to play well against Maryland because they are talented and they continue to be inconsistent, right? So they had a good first half against Northwestern, right? Hold them to 25 points. A bad second half, which means that they are now due for a good first half. This is a roller coaster year for the Indiana Hoosiers. They are up and they are down. There are moments where I look at them and I'm like, this team can win the Big Ten. And then there are moments like that second half against Northwestern where I'm like, this team couldn't beat a high school team from around here. Like that's how bad they look for some of these stretches. And there is just this they are consistently inconsistent, and that is not a good thing. So, do I expect for them to struggle against Maryland? Yes. Do I expect them to play well against Maryland? Also, yes. The question as to whether or not they win that game is solely based off of which one they do more. Because this team is extremely inconsistent. There are moments where Omar Ballo looks like he's a total beast, and then, it's 3 minutes of him just kind of loafing around. There are moments where Miles Rice looks like he was worth all of the hype that was laid out before him. The fact that he was the freshman of the year in the Pac-12 and everyone's so excited, like, oh, yay, Miles Rice. And there's moments where he has lived up to that. And then there have been a lot of moments where he has not. And until this team figures out a way to be consistent, then they aren't really going to have much success, right? They're going to hover around that 20-win mark and continue to beat teams like Minnesota, but they'll continue to lose to teams like Nebraska and Northwestern. They have got to find a way to consistently play their best brand of basketball. We haven't seen them do that enough this year. That's why they're 14-6. Like, they could very easily be 16-4, definitely 15-5. They just find a way to play a little bit of defense in that second half against Northwestern. But this is what happens when you are inconsistent. You lose games that you should not lose, and you win some games that you probably shouldn't win, even though I don't feel like we've really seen them do that quite yet this year. Tonight, though, is potentially the game of the weekend in the world of college hoops. Don't get me wrong. Nothing is outweighing Chiefs-Bills on Sunday night. But I expect for Purdue and Michigan tonight to be just an incredible, incredible game. I do. Like that. These are arguably the two best teams in the Big Ten. Michigan knows who they are, right? Golden and Wolf. Those are their two best players. When they need a bucket, they're going to those two guys. They're going to run some sort of screen and roll action with both of them, and then it's good luck. I'm very intrigued to see what Purdue does to try to defend that tonight, because you know that Michigan's going to run it. And then for Purdue, they know who they are. Who are their two best players? Braden Smith and Trey Kaufman-Renn. When they need a bucket, they're throwing the ball down onto the block to Trey Kaufman-Renn, or they're doing a Trey Kaufman-Renn, Braden Smith screen and roll going right so that Braden Smith can get to that pull-up jumper. And he's a gifted passer, so if you help him the corner, he can kick it. Both of these teams know who they are. Purdue has taken a step in the right direction defensively. You say, oh, what about the Ohio State game? The Ohio State game, that Parrish kid just got incredibly hot, right? Hit 6 of 8 threes, 8 of 10 shots overall from the floor. Sometimes that happens. It does. I like Purdue tonight. I expect them to win. They're at home. It's in Mackey. That's a tough place to go in and win. I expect them to respond pretty well after losing that game to Ohio State. Game's going to be great. I can't wait for that game, because Purdue is just everything that Indiana isn't. I know exactly what I'm getting from Purdue on a night-to-night basis. They don't have these lapses in effort like Indiana does, so can't wait to watch Purdue tonight. Give me Purdue over Michigan. I expect them to cover that 4.5-point spread. Indiana playing host to Maryland. The fact that I'm more intrigued to see how many people show up than who wins the game, I think, is pretty telling of how I feel about this Indiana basketball team. I don't know. That Queen kid from Maryland's pretty good. Picking these Indiana games, it's a chore. It just is, because you don't know what version of them is going to show up. But I guess I'll take the Hoosiers. Why not? They're at home. Maybe they'll respond well like they did in that Ohio State game, just to, lay an egg against whoever that they end up playing against next. But Indiana really needs to win this game, because they are entering a pretty tough stretch of their schedule, right? Like, they've got just a lot of good teams coming down the pipe. Obviously, Maryland, who's got that Queen kid who can really play, and then they go to Purdue on next Friday, a week from today, and then they go to Wisconsin on February 4th, and then they host Michigan, and then they go to Michigan State. So they need to win this game because their next 4 are going to be really tough. Really tough. Honestly, their schedule the rest of the way is tough. So this is a game that they desperately need to win just to hopefully set themselves up to make the tournament and to finish in a pretty solid spot in the Big Ten. But once again, they need to win this game on Sunday. Speaking of winning, my boy, Zach Gray, the official gambling expert of the Real Jonathan Smith Show, he's coming up here in about 4 minutes. He's going to tell you the best way to bet college basketball this weekend. He's also from Cincinnati. I know he was texting me throughout the week. He was like, I have thoughts on Lou Anarumo. And I was like, oh, please share them. I will take all the opinions on that guy that I can get. Zach Gray, professional sports gambler with bets and thoughts on the Colts' new defensive coordinator when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
Unadulterated sports talk with unfiltered takes. It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Tickets, joined by the best sports gambler I know, professional sports gambler, Zach Gray. Check him out on Twitter at ZGtheGrapevine. His Patreon's linked in his bio where he, gives you tools to help you make better bets. Zach, what's going on, man?
Jay Smith, what's up, man? I'm glad we're back on our normal schedule.
Yeah, me too. And I'm excited because you have bets this week. All right.
Yes, sir.
I've been doing decently as of late, but I could definitely use a little pick-me-up,
Yes, sir. We're going we're right swing in the middle of college basketball season. So we only have a couple NFL games left. College football's done. And now it's ready to roll. We're getting close to conference tournament and college basketball, and then that sweet, sweet March Madness.
Sweet, sweet March Madness. I can't wait. Last year, I did the whole thing where you bet the underdog on the money line in every game, and I came out positive. Might do that again this year. We'll see.
That was a crazy idea when you said it, and then the more that I thought about it, the more I realized, that's probably a pretty good plan.
It was a good plan. I don't remember how much money I made, but it was solid. It was solid. I paid for dinner one night with it, that's good enough for me.
That makes it all worth it. But we're gonna go to the hardwood tonight. Light slate on the college basketball side, but we have a play and then maybe a play, and I'll get into that after this one. But the first one here is over 129.5. LIU, St. Francis, Pennsylvania. So we're going really down deep in the depths of college basketball tonight. Over 129.5. I think my projections have it near 135, 136. So we're going to take that one. And then the second one here is one that you need to really make sure you're monitoring the injury report. St. Bonaventure versus VCU tonight. So St. Bonaventure has been a pretty fun surprise here this college basketball season, but their two leading scorers are out, Chance Moore and Desante Bowen. They have been out and they've been injured. They're both game time decisions tonight. If they play, I think you can get them at +12 or +12.5 right now. I'm debating on whether or not to pull the trigger, but if they do play, or if one of them plays, I would highly suggest pulling the trigger if you can get a +12.5, maybe even a +13.
Oh wow, that sounds great. Yeah, you said that's St. Bonaventure +12.5.
Yes, sir. And like I said, so Chance Moore, leading scorer, 14 and 7 a game, and then Desante Bowen is 11, 3 and 4 a game. So that's a lot of scoring, a lot of rebounding out. And you can really tell because they've struggled this last week or so. But when they're at full strength, they can score the basketball. They're a really good mid-major team. I know VCU is too, but if they're both playing, that number's just a little too high.
Okay, sounds good. So tonight, take LIU and St. Francis over 129.5, and then monitor the injury report. If St. Bonaventure's two best players are playing, take them +12 or +12.5 against VCU. I'm on it already. Thank you. Let's ride. This is great. So you live in actually used to live in Cincinnati. You don't live there anymore. You are a huge Bengals fan. You and I, we talked a little bit throughout the week about Lou Anarumo, the Colts' new defensive coordinator. What were your thoughts on him when he was in Cincy?
He was awesome. I mean, we went around calling King Lou, and I think there's a little bit of revisionist history based on last season's defense, and we'll get to that. But I don't know if you guys remember, but the 2 years that the Bengals made the AFC Championship, and especially the year they made the Super Bowl, the defense was what was winning them ball games. It's not like we were putting up 35, 40 points. We were making game-sealing interceptions against the Raiders. We were shutting down Patrick Mahomes. We were getting the ball back to get a field goal to clinch the Titans game. We picked off Tannehill 4 times when we got sacked 9 times and won the game. Like, shut down Derrick Henry for 30 yards in a divisional game on the road. Like, there are so many moments where the defense was the main cog that drove those Bengals runs in 21 and 22. And we look at this year and we think Lou's lost it, or he's a bad defensive coordinator. I no offense to Dan, but I heard him saying, he's a bottom half defensive coordinator. I just would ask you to go look at the roster that they had to work with this year. They're light already coming into the season. They lose Dax Hill. They lose a bunch of defensive backs out there. and they're running guys like Josh Newton against number one receivers. And yeah, it looked really bad at the beginning of the season, but the defense was a turnover creating machine during their 5-game win streak to get them in the playoff race. So, yes, it was bad, but you got to look at what was on the field and then the corrections that were made. It was bad. And then, a lot of to me, a bad coach wouldn't be able to identify the problems, have unsatisfactory personnel and then be able to correct it the way that he did. So I think this idea that Lou Anarumo is washed or not very good is completely overblown. Like, I think Indianapolis is getting one of the better defensive coordinators, one of the better defensive minds in football. You guys are gonna be watching a game in like week 3, and it's gonna be a 3rd and 4, and you need to get off the field, and he's gonna send some type of exotic simulated pressure, and you're gonna be like, I didn't even know that guy was blitzing. Turnover, 4th down, you're getting the ball back, and you're gonna say, dang, Lou Anarumo dialed it up. You're gonna be saying that all year.
Hey, I hope you're right, because Gus Bradley did not dial it up in the slightest. So let me say this first. I agree with you. I am excited about Lou Anarumo coming to Indy, and I completely agree with you on the players thing. Like, you can be the best coach ever, but if you don't have good players, it does not matter. And when you extend Joe Burrow and you pay him a whole bunch of money, like, you have to let guys walk. And I was talking to your friend, Reed Mouse, yesterday about this. And, Reed, he's got thoughts. And
yeah,
he made this comment of how he didn't feel like Lou Anarumo did a good job of developing the guys that the Bengals drafted at the top end of the draft to replace all the guys that left. Do you agree with that?
I have such a hard time with this because I don't know how much of a traditional development that we would see in the high school or college level happens in the NFL. Like, at a certain point in the NFL, you have your scheme and you have your responsibilities and you have your job, but all of those guys are comparable physically. And it's just a matter of seeing the game, understanding the game, and it clicking for you personally. So maybe that there's some truth to that, but do I think that the Chiefs do I think Spagnuolo is just like the defensive whisperer, and every player that comes into the draft is not as good, and then Spagnuolo makes them into a Pro Bowl or all pro level player? Do I think that happens every time? No. I mean, there may be some sliver to truth to that, but at the end of the day, the guys that you bring in have to be talented. And when those draft picks were taken that he's referring to, everyone had question marks. Miles Murphy, the end, we kind of viewed that as a project when he was taken. So how can we blame Lou Anarumo for a project, a coin flip essentially working out? It's tricky. I just don't know how much of the development point on this that I really buy into.
Yeah, that's totally fair. Joined by Zach Gray. Follow him on Twitter at ZGtheGrapevine. He's a professional sports gambler. You can check out the link in his bio to his Patreon, where he sells tools to help you make better bets. I want to look ahead to this weekend, Sunday. Commanders, Eagles. Who do you like?
I want to take the Commanders really bad, but I think the Eagles probably win. I think Saquon and, like, man, I thought he was kind of a bust at one point. Like, I was like ready to write him off.
Yeah.
And now he just looks unstoppable. I think Jalen Hurts is good enough. I think that defense is awesome. I think the Commanders will cause issues, and it wouldn't shock me if the Commanders won. But yeah, I think we're on a crash course to the Eagles-Chiefs again.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. People love the Commanders right now. I mean, every Jaden Daniels topic is a major hit. Like, I was on Twitter this morning. Apparently his mom doesn't let him date, and people are freaking out about that, because if you just bring up Jaden Daniels, people go crazy. With that being said, the Eagles are the healthiest team left. Like, they started their playoff run starting every single player that started in week 1. Like, meanwhile, the Lions had 16 guys out, or whatever the number ended up being. And that's just, it's very different. Like, I think there's a little bit of Notre Dame, Ohio State stuff here, where it's like, yeah, you had a nice run, but this is just a little bit different. Do you see the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, I saw something, I think it was on X, where it was comparing the 2021 Bengals, ironically, to this Commanders team, and they share a similar profile. And I think we could see a scenario where it's a close game, but the Eagles' experience just kind of pulls through in the moment. But like I said, man, like I don't think the Commanders are. I don't think it's really like an Ohio State Notre Dame thing, because I thought, before that national title game, Notre Dame was completely outmatched at almost everywhere on the field. I don't think that with the Commanders. I just think that the margins here favor the Eagles considerably. So I think it's kind of like that, but I just think in the margins, Philly's better, and Philly can do some more things. And how long can the wild style of Dan Quinn, work out? One of these decisions, right? It has to backfire eventually. I would think, probability wise.
Yeah, that's kind of what I think as well. Let's move to Bills Chiefs. I know you already said that you feel like we're on a collision course for Chiefs Eagles. I feel the same way, and I'm just kind of curious. I think we're having, or I'm hearing at least, a lot of the same conversation as last year. Last year when the Bills played the Chiefs, it was like, oh, the Bills, like, this is the year to beat them. They get them at home. Josh Allen's playing great. Stephon Diggs, all this kind of stuff. And this year, it's like Josh Allen's playing the best football of his career. The offensive line's the best one he's had. James Cook is playing his best football. Like, this is the year where the Bills should beat the Chiefs. And I'm just kind of like, I don't know. I think the Chiefs are better this year than they were last year. The defense is awesome. I like the Chiefs. Do you feel like we're having just a really similar discourse as to what we had this last year?
Yeah, two things, Jay Smith, that I want to touch on here. One, if you guys go all the way back to the preseason when I was on the show, I believe there was a guy named ZGtheGrapevine that predicted that the Bills would be in the Super Bowl. I think I remember very faintly Jonathan saying that the Bills weren't going to be very good and that their window was closing. And I remember saying, but normally when we say that, that's when they really actually do it. So I'm going to give myself credit, potentially. Not sure if I said that or you said that, but I'm going to say we both did.
Let's go with that.
And then second of all, I saw a super funny video on Instagram this morning. This is off the wall, but it's a video of a guy in a car showing a deer Josh Allen highlights, and it cuts after that to Josh Allen watching deer highlights, and it's absolutely hilarious. I'll send it to you.
Yeah, please do. That sounds hilarious. Yeah.
But yeah, if you guys need to check that video out. But no, I think you're right when it comes to, it's kind of the same storyline. It just feels like it's Groundhog Day when it comes to Chiefs Bills. And as much as I believe in the Bills, I would be a dummy to keep picking against the Chiefs in this situation until they prove me otherwise.
I will say the one thing that I find intriguing is the line's only 1.5, which tells me that Vegas thinks that the Bills roster is better, because I'm assuming that playing at Arrowhead is worth at least 3-ish points.
Yeah, you could say that. To be honest with you, Jay Smith, I think part of the line is the hope that the Bills can finally, or that we don't see the Chiefs in the Super Bowl and that the Bills can finally do it. I think it's a lot of public hope. I think it's a lot of narrative. I don't know if that's actually how we're going to see it play out.
Yeah, I hope you're right, because I'm betting the Chiefs, baby. Let's go. And I got to be honest, yeah. I hope they win. I want to see them do the whole three-peat thing, because I think witnessing history is cool. Do you kind of feel the same way or no?
Yeah, I'd be fine with the Chiefs winning. I think it's so weird the way the Chiefs are winning this year. I know it's been talked about ad nauseum, but we've seen Patrick Mahomes win Super Bowls in a bunch of different ways, and this would just be another way that he's done it. And like, he's just really solidifying GOAT status. Like, it's really right before our eyes. It's like watching LeBron develop throughout the mid to late 2000s into the 2010s. Like, we're literally witnessing legendary stuff. It's just cool. Yeah, you're right. History is cool.
It is cool.
I'm not a hater. I'm not a greatness hater like most of you out there.
Hey, I'm not either. I want dynasties. Dynasties make sports better. It gives people someone just to hate, which is a really good thing. Zach, I got to run. I am out of time. Just one more time. LIU against St. Francis, take over 129.5. And then monitor the injury report. If the Bonnies' best two players play, take them plus 12.5 against VCU. If they don't play, should I take VCU?
No, you should turn the TV off and watch something else.
Fair enough. Zach, thanks for your time, man.
Yep. See you, Jay Smith.
See you. That is Zach Gray. Follow him on Twitter at ZG the Grapevine. He's got a Patreon linked in his bio where he sells tools to help you make better bets. The Dan Dockett Show loaded up today. A lot of great guests. It's going to be a good one. So stick around. The Dan Dockett Show comes your way here in about 4 minutes. I will talk to you again on Monday, starting at 10 o'clock.